All right, a very good morning, Twitch fans from Captain Nabs. Once again, we're here for another leg of a pilot's life. I apologize first of all for the late start here. I had originally said I was going to start at about a half an hour ago, and I apologize. I had some technical difficulties I was trying to work out. It was really just being a real pain in the rear. I think I've got them worked out now, I hope. But yeah, I was beginning to wonder whether I was going to even be able to do this because it was just the sim was not playing nice with me. It really was not. So I seem to have gotten it working. I hope it's going to work for the whole length of this stream. But yeah, here we are. We're back in Puerto Vallarta again for the second time in a couple of weeks, and the third time in this series in total. But we are going to be leaving it, I think, for the last time on our way back to, this time we're not going directly to Vancouver, we're going to Victoria. So a little bit of a sidestep on the way to Vancouver. It's almost the same place, but nice little quiet airport, and then it'll set us up for maybe perhaps a double header the next time we do this stream. So yeah, here we are. And of course I realized as quickly as I've started here that I had made one little mistake here, omitted one little thing here, so give me 1 second. Okay, back in the flight deck. I realized I had not set my time of day correctly because I was, like I said, I was dealing with the sim and I was just trying to troubleshoot the sim, so I had not reset the time of day. So I do like to try as much as possible to fly in real time and deal with whatever really happens in the simulator world. So anyways, as I said, we're here in Puerto Vallarta today. We are going to be doing a flight back to Victoria, British Columbia. There's our sim brief update right there. We did get paid a couple of days ago because it is the new month, so I now have $1,600 in my bank account. I am starting to look like a pretty well-off senior first officer here at WestJet. It'll be a shame to leave it, but we'll see what we can do. As I said, my next target is to get to potentially a CRJ operator and start flying in Microsoft Flight Simulator for at least a little while. Just for something different to keep things a little more interesting. So SkyWest would be a good one. Envoy potentially would also be a good one. There's quite a few good ones. I'm going to apply to probably a bunch of them, see which ones get back to me here. Envoy's got a lot on the east, not so much on the west, but they do operate the CRJ 700. So tons of good airports based in Chicago, based in Dallas. Those are both airports that are available in Microsoft Flight Simulator as a detailed airport, and certainly any hub that I visit many times, I want to have a good airport there. If the outstations are not so too detailed, that's okay, but the hub needs, to me especially, to be a really detailed airport. The other one, of course, is LaGuardia, is also a bit of a big hub. It's kind of their northeast hub as well. Miami, a little bit there, Miami. So yeah, so there are some airports out there we can definitely deal with. So I don't know yet. I'm going to apply to a couple of them. I'm going to see which one responds to me, and probably whichever one has the best route network is the one I'm going to end up flying for, because that's what truly interests me, is flying to some new places. But in the meantime, we've got a fairly long flight ahead of us. I think it's about 4 hours and 45 minutes. So let's get this show on the road today here. Hop in the flight deck and away we go. If I can figure out my stuff here. There we are. All right. As always, we've got our FS2 crew here, standing by, ready to help me out as soon as I just get this plane fired up. And I always have trouble testing the flight recorder unless I'm at a bit of a more central angle. Always a real pain in the butt to get to that switch. I don't know why. There we go. I really should create a view just specifically for trying to get to that switch. Anywho. Yeah, so we'll get this whole plane powered on here. We'll make sure that parking brake is on. She's going to power up. We're going to talk to our FO here in a second as soon as we give him some information for the day. So, actually, before we even get the FO going, let's do this. Let's do the performance calculation. And let's do this as well. So I need to, you know what I didn't do? That's what I didn't do. I didn't actually connect to the VATSIM network yet. Oh, for crying out loud. There we go. Let's just check the weather, because that's what I was really here for on VATSIM, was to check the weather live and see what's going on here. Winds are out of the northeast today. Okay, so we're going to do runway 4 for departure today. That's, they're light, but we'll take it. It looks like a dry day here. Show keyboard. And let's come up with some takeoff performance data, because our FO is going to be... It's going to want to know this stuff. Normally your dispatcher would have this all prepared for you, but we don't have a dispatcher today, so... I am my own dispatcher. Frustrating. Let's see if we can do takeoff 2. Optimum flap setting, AC on, and anti-ice is not required. Calculate. And actually I need a takeoff weight. See if I figured out a takeoff weight anyways. And I can again do a flap 1 takeoff is the optimum. Okay. Flap 1 it is. Bleeds on, and so we will be able to do derated. No, it's not derated, it's just takeoff 2. So we're just going to do derated, but there's no takeoff temperature specified, so yeah, okay, that works for me. Alright, bleeds on, and alright, yeah, if I'm a little bit discombobulated today, it's just because I'm feeling a little bit behind the 8 ball. I didn't, like I said, it took me so long fighting with the sim trying to get it working this morning. I was about to give up, and then finally I seem to have gotten it to work. I didn't even set up a random payload, or reset my fuel, or do anything I was supposed to do, because I was sitting there. I was just so happy to have the sim booted up. So probably we had about 12,000 pounds to start. And payload. So we'll call it. That's not a very hefty payload anyways. 45 people, but so be it. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Yeah, so I guess we'll hop into the FMS really here, and we'll just start going here. Let's do this. Because it's easier to do it this way. Alright, so we've got current charts. Yes, those are good. And we'll go ahead and get the GPS. And actually, before I forget, I should also be calling for fuel and catering. So request refueling. I should probably actually ask them to put the stairs on the airplane as well. And request catering service. Okay, so off to our route today. So we are at MMPR Puerto Vallarta for what will probably be the last time, and we're going to CYYJ Victoria. The flight number today is 2041, so we are WestJet 2041. And I could send in the request, but I'm just going to do this myself here because I think I can get it done just about as quickly. The Bob D1 Alpha is the one we need for 04, and let me just pull up my flight plan here on my other screen here, just so I have the route. You guys can see it at the bottom of the screen there. It's going to be after Bob D, it's direct to CUL. And, yeah, Culican, that sounds correct. Let's see here. UT12 to Villa, and then Jet 92, so hopefully this will figure it out. It should find the common point, assuming it finds the correct common point. The only trouble with doing this is that if there's more than one common point, you may not get the common point you want. So if the airways cross at more than one point, which could happen for parallel airways, you may not always get the one you want. Over to Eli, Nero, and then IMB, so NEE Nero, IMB, Kimberly at North 44 by West 119. That definitely sounds about right. Jet 523 to Seattle, Jet 523, and then we should transition to Jet 502 at Seattle, and I believe this should work here. Seattle, love it. Let's refuel the aircraft, and then direct to YYJ. And that's it, and then after that, we'll have to come up with some arrival procedure later, but for now that's what we're doing, and let's see here. So they wanted fuel. Let's see, what are we doing for fuel today? That's the wrong thing again. I'm just feeling discombobulated. Sometimes it just does not work for me here. Alright, so fuel, we are looking for 36.5, so 38, we'll call it. No, we'll call it 37. Round up by 500, that's fine. There we go. He'll do that fueling, perfect. In the meantime, we can move on to our perf init page. ZFW straight out of the flight plan, and actually what I didn't do is I didn't set this guy going after I went through all of this stuff, so pre-flight, do it.
Okay, let's get this show on the road.
Thank you, buddy. Forgot to tell the FO he could go do some work now. Alright, so ZFW, I think it's going to be a lot less than this, because this is estimated with 147, and that's not what we were loading here. I might just revise this really quickly. Thank you. What did I say? It's like 45 people, I think. Keep everything else the same, but just drop the number of people, and let's get a better ZFW here. Alright, yes, I know. So ZFW of 106.7 is more realistic with this number of people. There we go. And that's one of those things that you have to kind of get in the habit of doing in aviation, is if a number doesn't make sense, you have to question it. You can't just blindly follow stuff. You really need to have a good sense of what approximately you should be seeing, and then be able to be ready to question something and either prove or disprove that you're wrong, that your suspicions are correct. 1.6, so that's 3.7. So reserves of about 3.7 to get to Vancouver. It's not very far to Vancouver, that's for sure. I have to open the right and forward aft entry so that they can load some catering. Alright, and our cruise today is going to be 36 initially. Cruise winds looking at 292 at 47 on average. And we can execute that. N1 limit takeoff 2 with no derate given. And flaps 1. Takeoff C of G. We can just autofill that. And we got some numbers here. So 145, 146, 151, and there we go. And you might as well, as soon as you get that 151, set it on there so you've got it handy. Stop doing that. Stop popping that screen up. There we go. Alright, and we've got the FMS already set up, so we can hop into the rest of the flight deck. Let's go ahead and see what we got going on here. Alright, so we should be able to check the stall now. And when the FO comes in, he's also going to get all this stuff turned on for us anyways, but it doesn't hurt to kind of do some of it ahead of time for him. It's in, ground power's on. Thought I turned on the emergency lights, but obviously I did not. That's okay. Fueling's going on, so we're not going to turn on the seatbelt sign yet. Just get a head start on this guy here. There goes all the window heats. And that was my fault. I didn't send him out to the walk around soon enough. And the packs should be in the auto position. All the bleeds are open. Recirc fans are all auto. Position light is on. Yeah, we're looking pretty good there. Alright, very good. So let me just pull up my charts here really quickly for MMPR, and it's the Bob D1 Alpha departure we're doing today, which is climbing out straight ahead on runway heading, which is 040 until we get to our first turn. So it's a climb in LNAV mode anyways. And is there an initial altitude? I don't believe we get initial altitudes here. We do not, do we? So we're just going to put 10,000 in there as a good initial altitude. There's lots of high terrain around here, so we should have a high initial altitude anyways. Flight director's on, and looks like we do have the IRSs aligned. Oops. So we can go ahead and get LNAV and VNAV already armed. The altimeter, it is exactly standard today, so that's good. Don't have to set that. Test these lights. Lights everywhere. And all of them appear to be working. To RTO, those are both in auto. Normal. Okay, for some reason this thing is really high today. I knocked my track IR sensor the other day, so it was aimed ridiculously high, which is why it loses me the second I look down here. Get rid of that armor so I can see the radios. And let's go ahead and get Unicom in here because we got nothing else to do right now. Unicom. And we got 2,000 up on the transponder. That works for me. Alright, I think our flow is already just about done here. And he's not even back from the walk around yet.
Hi, the security and safety check are complete. Can we start boarding now?
Go for it.
Thanks.
Alright, so we've commenced boarding. Those guys can leave. Fuel truck is still fueling. Just waiting for the bus to show up with our passengers. I tried not to use the jet bridge again because those jet bridges don't actually move, so I thought it was a little bit awkward last time when I was using the jet bridge. So I went with just a hard stand position again today. Just gotta wait for the bus to arrive with our passengers, and then we can get ourselves underway here. Fueling is also underway. And yeah, so there we go. So we are just about ready to rock and roll already here. Didn't take us very long, that's for sure. And if our
Okay, I'm back from the walk around. Everything looks good.
Thank you. Alright, so we'll let him just run through all of his flows and checklists, and then as soon as he's done that, we can do our briefing. Unfortunately, it's going to take a minute here. Let's see here. What was our estimated takeoff weight? It's going to be about 106 plus 36. It's about 142,000, so I can even recalculate this again here. 142,000. Calculate. And then we can do takeoff to, actually with a selected temperature of 32 degrees. So let's go back to the N1. No, not that page. And so we're takeoff to, we can do a select temperature of 32 degrees. We are really going to derate these engines. Then we should get speeds of 39, 39, 45. Oh, now we're flat 5. There we go. Within a very reasonable margin of error there. 144,000, actually a little higher than planned. So let's just check this out. I just did that first one just from approximately estimating. But let's make sure this is really correct here. So we should have a takeoff temperature of 31. We'll want to takeoff to derate. And that should give us 40, 40, 46. There, now it matches. When you get the weights to match exactly, then you get everything to match precisely. So it's going to be a flap 5 takeoff now this time. So let's just make sure we set this in the departure set window as well, so that this guy will set the flaps correctly when we finish our after start check. And I think these guys need the back door open again. Anytime there's a hard stand, there you go. Now you can see the doors on the bus are opening, which means that they're going to start boarding. I never got GSX level 2. Now that Microsoft Flight Simulator is the platform, it's beginning to seem less and less like I should go that way. So you won't see any people actually moving, unfortunately, but that's fine. We'll just ignore them and pretend like they're moving. Let's see here. The fuel truck left. We can start the APU. I'm really kind of in a bit of a rush to get this one going, just because I'm so annoyed about how long it took me to get through these technical difficulties. Alright, do we have the pumps on? We do not, so let's get all those pumps on. Let's get that APU starting. And let's just make sure my pilot's light screen is on the right place. It's not. Let's see how my hours look here. Just curious to see how those hours looked. Yeah, April was a pretty good month. It was the second best month I'd done. It wasn't quite as good as May of last year, where I did almost 19 hours of this career. But nevertheless, it's been an interesting run of it here. You can see that WestJet isn't taking up very much of my flight hours. All those long hauls at Air Transat really did a lot of flight hours. However, 737 is now taking over as a dominant aircraft because I flew it at both Transat and WestJet. Alright, anyways, we'll make sure we're on the current flight page there, so it's ready to go. They're boarding. I'm just waiting for this guy to finish his flows, and then we can do a departure briefing. While we're at it, let's just pull up those charts. Okay, so we got you are good. Show menu, terminal charts. Use airports from FMS. Thank you. And it's the Bob D1 Alpha, I believe. That's the Bob D1 Alpha, right? Yes, off 04. Okay. Oh, there he goes. I think he's ready. Pre-flight checklist.
Let me finish my pre-flight procedure first.
Okay, well, your window says you're done, so don't be a dick. Honest to God. Captains get no respect these days, I tell ya. No respect. Because normally it should say up here, I don't know, can you see that, or is it cut off? It's cut off a little bit, but normally when he's doing something, it says it right here. Because it's blank, I assume he is ready to go. But no, he's still doing checklists. Alright, looks like the boarding's already done. Baggage is about half loaded, so we're going to get out of here pretty quickly, which is great. Like I said, I wanted to be airborne half an hour ago, and thanks to my sim giving me so many issues. And there's one thing about this hobby that just really bugs me sometimes, is you want to just sit down and do something. Are you ready for the departure briefing?
Yes.
Okay. So, first of all, let's do an emergency briefing. For any master warning into direction control. No, not that one. In the event of any abnormality during taxi, we'll stop. This will be a left seat takeoff. Any malfunctions prior to the V1 of 140, I will call stop or go. If the call to stop, I'll close the thrust levers, apply maximum brake, disconnect the auto throttle, apply maximum reverse, and stop on the runway. I'll set the parking brake. PA remain seated, and call for any required memory items or QRH checklists. Then you will verify reverse, moderate deceleration, call 360 knots, and advise ATC as required. Mayday, mayday, mayday. WestJet 2041 stopping on the runway. If the call is go or at above, we want to continue the takeoff at 400 feet. Call heading mode bank and ask you to identify the failure. The engine failure procedure out of here is going to be to follow the SID, because that'll take us clear of the high terrain. It's the best bet to fly out of the high terrain, or the other option is to make a quick left 180 if we're still VMC. Once established in the climb, we'll retract the flaps at schedule and call for any required memory items or QRH checklists. The taxi out today at Puerto Vallarta. We're here at the terminal. It's going to be pretty straightforward. Go out probably Echo here, and then all the way down Alpha to the threshold of runway 04, where we will do the Bob D1 Alpha departure. So this is on plate 10-3 Alpha, the 7th of September of 2018. Bob D1 Alpha, RNAV1 GNSS required, radar required. And let's see here. That's what I'm looking for over here. Just want to get this up because I want to see the legs in here as well. So we're going to basically take off heading 040 straight ahead to cross PR502 at above 4,500 at a max 220 knots. Then it's a left turn to PR503 at 13,000 at or below 13,000. And then we're going to go PR505 at or above 18,000, and then Bob D at or above 200. So that's all in there. There's no top altitude, so I've selected 10,000 and we'll keep climbing. There is high terrain to the south, to the southeast, to the east, and also a little bit to the north. A little hill up there to the north. So 10,000 will get us over, should get us over most of that. So we'll keep the low speed and climb to 10,000 as quickly as we can. Let's see here. Terrain is a big issue, obviously. We'll follow the SID, or if we have to, like I said, engine failure, if it's not too soon after departure, we can hook back around to a 180 to the left. Otherwise, weather looks really good today. Beautiful, operational. No MELs on this aircraft at this time. Everything is functional. One of these days I should do a APU fail departure, and just for the fun of it. Maybe the next flight will do that. Weather, let me see here. And operational, yeah, so operational NOTAMs, that's what I was going to look up. Again, Alpha between Golf and Threshold 22 is closed, so that doesn't affect our departure here, and every night, that runway is closed, but during the day it's fine. And that's all the NOTAMs we have, so it's good. That's all I've got. Any questions?
No questions.
Pre-flight checklist.
Pre-flight checklist. Oxygen.
Test at 100%.
Test at 100%. Navigation transfer and display switches. Normal, auto. Window heat, on. Pressurization mode selector, auto. Flight instruments.
Heading 038. Altimeter 2993.
Checked. Parking brake.
Set.
Engine start levers.
Cut off.
Pre-flight checklist complete.
Alright, we're just about ready to go here, and actually let's do this. Let's get that APU generator going. Cockpit to ground.
Go ahead.
Please disconnect external power.
Roger. Disconnecting the GPU.
So one nice thing about doing a really short,
Use the load sheet for
a really low passenger count is it doesn't take very long to board them. Thank you. Alright, so we got the APU going. I think the cargo, yeah, the baggage is all loaded. Everybody's loaded.
Captain, the GPU is disconnected.
Thank you. So let's go ahead and get this counting down. Oh, he's doing some stuff now, so it won't let me do anything.
Watch your leg, please.
That's right, he's setting up the trim and everything else. So the trim should be at about 5.87. There we go, nice.
Verify takeoff speeds.
Verified.
Check.
Come on. Come on, buddy. Let's get her done. I want to get out of here today. Let's get rid of the stairs. There we go.
advised, all passengers are on board. Are we cleared to close?
Thanks.
Thanks.
There goes the one staircase. What's the other staircase waiting for? Is it waiting for the door to close? If I click this down the last notch and the door closes, is that when it goes? What is going on here? There it goes. Why is that back stair not going? I think I had the same problem last time. The back stair would not leave. And I ended up having to reset GSX to get it to work. 'Cause that back stair just seems to be stuck now. So we'll do it this way. Goodbye, ground equipment. And start again. Before start checklist down to the line.
Before start checklist to the line. Fuel 37.0 thousand pounds. Pumps on. Passenger signs on.
Hello, Captain.
Windows.
We're ready for pushback.
Locked.
Locked. MCP.
Heading 151. Sorry. Speed 151. Heading 040. Altitude 10,000.
Checked. Takeoff speeds.
B1 139, VR 139. V2 145. V2 145.
Checked. CDU preflight.
Completed.
Completed. Rudder and aileron trim.
Set and checked.
Taxi and takeoff briefing.
Complete.
Before start checklist completed to the line.
Below the line.
Flight deck door closed and locked. Anti-collision light on. Before start checklist complete.
There we go. It didn't know where to go, but now I did. But I told it where to go.
Has been inserted. Release parking brake.
Here we go.
Commencing push. All engines clear. Start at will.
Start sequence is 1, then 2.
Check.
Start engine 1.
Starting 1.
We now request your full attention as the flight attendants demonstrate the safety features of this aircraft. When the seatbelt sign illuminates, you must fasten your seatbelt. Insert the flat metal clip to the buckle and pull the loosen straps and tighten it up. To release your seatbelt, lift the upper portion of the buckle. We suggest that you keep your seatbelt fastened throughout the flight as we may experience turbulence. There are several emergency exits on this aircraft, 2 forward, 2 aft, and 2 over each wing. Please take a moment to locate the exit nearest you. In some cases,
Alright, so valves are opening.
if we need to evacuate the aircraft,
Valves are open, which means we should have fuel flow. We do, and we should see any second.
direction of the arrow.
That looks like light off right there.
Inflatable slide, which may also be
We are getting oil pressure.
oxygen and air pressure.
Temperature's rising. It's all looking good.
In the event of decompression, an oxygen mask will automatically appear in front of you. To start the flow of oxygen, pull the mask towards you. Place it firmly over your nose and mouth.
It's one of those things too about pushback. Pushback is such a busy process because not only are you starting engines, but also the captain is always monitoring what's going on outside the airplane, regardless of whether or not
Cut out.
Secure your mask on first, and then it's
checked.
Set
Keep
parking
your
brakes.
mask on until it is uniform.
Start engine 2.
Advises you to remove it.
Starting 2.
In the event of an emergency, please assist the
Waiting your confirmation for good
Yeah, regardless of like what whether the pushback crew is actually doing a pushback, the captain is nevertheless always watching to see what's happening out there, listening on the radio. If there's any alterations to the pushback instructions from ATC as they're going, communicating with the ramp crew as required, and starting engines at the same time. This was like our company actually switched. Originally, captains were the ones that started the engine, but our company switched to FO starting the engines because even though like there's a lot of potential for risk if the engine, of course, catches fire, and during the start is one of the best times for an engine to catch fire, one of the most likely times, I mean. There's just so much going on that they wanted the captain to step back and be the manager of the situation and not be actually performing the tasks. So our company decided while I was there to switch to FO start the engine. and the captain just simply monitors everything that's going on because there's so much going on between monitoring the pushback, monitoring the FO to make sure that the engine start is proceeding normally, and all that other stuff. They decided to make it so that the captains could. We're not so focused, because the thing is, whoever's starting the engine really needs to be just this. Needs to be staring at these gauges without looking at anything else. So by delegating that to the FO can just literally be heads down here while the captain is sitting back here and watching this, and also making sure the FO is doing his job, but also still looking around and not missing something because he's also aware of what's going on around the airplane. So it's a surprisingly busy little period of time there. Alright, let's get this flight number set here, just so I have it ready when I need it.
Left is clear. Right is clear.
Alright, here he goes. Flaps 5.
Flaps 5.
No, don't have it, so just a flight control check. Before taxi checklist.
Before taxi checklist, generators on, probe heat on, anti-ice off, isolation valve auto, engine start switches continuous, recall checked, auto brake, RTO, engine start levers,
Idle detent.
flight controls,
Checked.
dispatch clearance
Checked.
checked. Before taxi checklist complete.
Clear on the left.
Clear right.
Set taxi light to on.
Taxi light off.
Set taxi light to on.
Taxi light on.
Jesus. Puerto Vallarta traffic, WestJet 2041 is at the terminal taxiing Alpha for departure, runway 04 on the Bob D1 Alpha departure. Alright, farewell, Aeropuerto Internacional de Puerto Vallarta. I will probably come back again sometime, but it won't be for a long time. I've been here enough times in the last little while. Let's go explore some different places, shall we? That is the airline lifestyle, though. Always going back and forth to the same places. That's one thing I really enjoyed it. Before I was an airline pilot, I was a charter pilot for quite a few years. I enjoyed the charter pilot life. It was grueling at times. It was a little frustrating at times because you were on your own, but that was also the joy of it too. We didn't have dispatchers. We had flight followers. They would do a few things for us. They might phone customs and arrange a few things ahead of time, but most of the work fell upon the pilots, and you had to do everything basically to manage to get the flight done. On the flip side of that, though, you knew that everything was done properly because you went out there and did it yourself. Alright, this is Alpha. So I always had mixed emotions about that, about being my own dispatcher. Sometimes it was frustrating because I didn't have enough hands and enough time to do all the tasks I need to do, especially with passengers breathing down your neck. But it was really neat because you go to so many different places, and that was one thing I always loved about the charter world, is that you're going to every day is a different adventure. You don't know what's going to be at the place you're going to. You've never been there before, so it's just constant adventure. You get into the airline business, it's very repetitive. There's lots of different challenges. Schedule more than anything. Trying to keep it on schedule. Of course, safety above all else. But trying to keep on schedule is a very different challenge than working to the whim of a passenger's schedule. We leave when they're here. That's how the charter business works. Oh, you guys are here? Okay, great. Now we're going to go. And you get it going as quick as you can at that point, but you didn't know when they were going to show up, so you have you have sort of as much done as you can, but those last minute actual in-airplane items, you can't do them until you're actually there. So but the other fun part was also then when the passengers were gone and you'd be sitting around an airport for half a day. What do? And it could be very boring sometimes if there's not much around, but you try to find things. You try to explore the little area around the airport. A lot of these airports would have a crew car that you could just borrow. you know, for a couple of hours for the day, for an hour or two, go out, find a meal, maybe shop at some stores, just explore what's around there in the local area. Some places would have you could take the car for a lot longer. There was one place I remember that would let us, if it was kind of later in the evening, they'd let us take the car to the hotel, and they had a nice car. They had a Beamer. That was their crew car, so you'd get to take the Beamer over to the hotel. So you might go, you know, check in the hotel and go grab some dinner, but like, just you'd always be discovering different things, new things, fun restaurants. You'd never know what you're going to find, and that was always kind of the fun of it. Airline business is it's all about margins. So like your stays places are usually at the cheaper hotels because they have a nice long contract. It may not be in a convenient location. There may not be a whole lot around the hotel, but that's okay because you're probably not there for very long anyways. You're probably there for the minimum 12 hours, and that's about it. Like, before takeoff checklist. Before takeoff checklist.
Before takeoff checklist. Flaps.
Flaps 5, green light.
Stabilizer trim.
Set. Set and checked. Set and checked.
Before takeoff checklist complete.
I just want to get a nice view, if I may. Taxiing around the corner off the center line. So let's get it on the center line. Puerto Vallarta traffic, WestJet 2041 is taking position runway 04 for departure. Something like that. That might be my title card for the video. Lineup check. Lineup procedure. Before takeoff procedure.
Check.
Whatever you want to call it. They're supposed to have multiple names, but apparently this guy doesn't know them.
Ready to go.
Auto thrust on before we start rolling here. Let's just make sure before I do anything else. This has got the end flight button. Perfect. Okay. Here we go. Set takeoff thrust.
Check. Thrust set. Knots.
Checked.
Rotate. Positive free.
Gear up. Flaps 1.
Flaps 1.
Flaps up.
Flaps up.
Select autopilot. Select Command A.
Command A.
I don't know why the VNav clicked off there, and now we blew through the speed limit. I'm not sure why the just as I was putting the autopilot on, for some reason the VNAV kicked out, so that's weird. It was on before, because it automatically set itself to 220 knots. It's going to get back there, it's just going to take some time here. After takeoff checklist.
After takeoff checklist. Engine bleeds, on, packs, auto, landing gear, up and off, flaps, up, no lights. After takeoff checklist complete.
Alright, so now he's done. Now, I don't know what happened there. For some reason the VNAV kicked out, and it tried to level itself off, essentially. It just doesn't have any pitch guidance at all.
The cabin crew?
No.
Okay.
I want to reduce this deck angle from 14 degrees before I release the cabin crew. But we are going to get the speed back to 220 knots before we reach that speed restriction. We weren't supposed to really exceed 220 knots, but anyways. So there's the high terrain north of the airport. We're going to kind of cut through this valley over here, between the hills to the east and the hills to the west there, as we make our way northbound. But we are underway on our next leg of a pilot's life here. Victoria, here we come. And then we have a max altitude. We're going to get the max altitude of 13,000 by our next fix. As soon as we pass this here, we are in VNAV. As soon as we pass this PR502 fix, it should pop up to 250 knots, or even higher if we're already above 10,000, which we will be just passing it. Here's the 10,000 mark, and there's 319, which is good, because then we'll pitch down, because our 13,000, not above 13,000, is not till right here at the next fix there, which is 20 miles away. Go for it.
Check.
Alright, we can let everybody out now. The deck angle's a little normal, but the deck angle was a little bit extreme there at 13 degrees when we were climbing. With almost an empty airplane, too. That's the other thing, too, is that this airplane today is almost empty. So she was really climbing like a bat out of hell there, trying to get back to that 220 knots. There we go. So we're going to level off at 13,000 feet, which we're going to be there in about 3 or 4 miles, and then it's just going to keep on accelerating. And I checked 1,000 to go, and away we go. So we are underway for another leg of a pilot's life. Welcome, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in, everybody who's here. And we are underway to Victoria, so, yeah. That's one thing that I haven't done, actually, and I should probably do that in this PMDG airplane before I run out of time. We should fail the APU and do some engine starts without the APU with the ground air cart, because I believe, I'm 90% sure, or 99% sure that the PMDG will simulate that. Let's just check here, but I'm pretty sure that you can hook up a... I can't check the ground services menu now because we're in the air. Of course you can't do that. Why would you be able to do that? It absolutely makes sense, but just, what a shame, because that would have... but I'm pretty sure you can hook up a ground air cart, and then you can simulate an air cart start, which is something I don't think I've done in this airplane yet. I think I did it once or twice in the Mad Dog just for fun, but I haven't done it in this airplane yet. So I think we're going to do that on our next leg. We obviously missed the opportunity to do that today, but let's do that on the next leg. Let's do a air cart start on the next leg. It's not a hard procedure, but it's just frustrating more than anything. The biggest thing is just that it's a very time-consuming procedure, because you've got to get the, first of all, like because the ramp guys are moving so close to the airplane when an engine is started, you got to be a lot more careful about this than your normal engine start. Normally with the engine starts, the guys are standing in front here, there's a guy at each wingtip, but nobody's anywhere close to the engines. When you do an air cart start, the air cart connections are usually right underneath the belly of the airplane, right near the wing roots. So you're going to have to usually start one engine on the cart, and then the ground guy's going to have to come underneath the belly, disconnect, close the panel and everything while one of the engines is running. So it's very important to make sure that everybody is in communication, because there's more equipment than usual hooked up to the airplane during the start process. Normally during an engine start, the only thing hooked up to the airplane is the tug. So it's because safety is so important. Alright, I can now set our cruise altitude. because safety is so important, you got to make sure absolutely 100% that nobody's anywhere close to that airplane where they're going to be in any kind of a risk of getting injured by that engine when it's started. So lots of clear communication. It's also just a tedious and time-consuming process. Air carts don't usually put out as much power as the APU, and because they have a long hose to push it through, they lose some of that power as well. Alright, so there we go. So we got VNAV. It's pushing the climb back in there automatically on its own because we passed the waypoint. Perfect. Yeah, so when you're doing an air cart start, yeah, you don't get usually as much pressure. That's the other thing too. You need a certain minimum amount of pressure in the ducts for the engine start, otherwise the engines will not turn fast enough, and there's a good chance of over-temping the engine on start. And it's much more likely to happen with an air cart because the power source of an air cart is usually weaker. I don't think they're turbine engines. I'm 90% sure they're just like a diesel engine that's just running at high speed to compress enough air. So they don't have the efficiency of the turbine engine in terms of compressing a lot of air. And then, like I said, there's also a long hose in the airplane. The hose, the plumbing from the APU to the engines for the start is very fixed. It's a finite and pretty short distance with relatively few turns, so you get very little loss of pressure. When you got an air cart sitting out here, they probably have like a 100-foot hose on it. They probably got it coiled up 6 different ways because they don't need the whole 100 feet, but you want the 100 feet just in case you happen to have a big airplane where it is far away. So they got this big long hose, and it's not a very big hose at all. It's like a 3-inch diameter hose. It's a very small diameter hose, pushing very high pressure air, but you get a lot of losses in there as well very quickly. So the air cart starts tend to be slower, tend to be much more stressed because there's much more likely to overtemp an engine. The only times I've ever really seen an engine overtemp on start is when we're using the air carts. When either the air cart suddenly sort of putters out or loses some pressure halfway through or something like that. So it's a very awkward, slow process, because then once the engine started, then you got to tell them to disconnect it. It takes them a minute or two to get disconnected and make sure everybody's safe and clear. And then you can't start the other engine until you found a clear space to do it. Because at idle thrust, almost all turbine engines will not generate enough bleed air pressure to start another engine. So you actually have to usually run the engines to about 35 to 40%, or the started engine to about 35 to 40% before you can do what's called the cross bleed start, which is where one engine, or the bleed from the engine that's running, is used to start the engine that stopped. Standard set.
Checked.
And a cross bleed start has its own inherent risk because you're sitting, because you have to use more than idle thrust. So normally when you're starting the second engine, whether it be on the taxi or during the pushback, you're again using the APU's bleed air to start that second engine. So the first engine can stay at idle and it's minimal risk to anybody else. But in order to start the second engine from the first engine needs to be above idle thrust, usually like 30-40%, which if you're taxiing, that's going to really accelerate you really quick, so you're going to really wear your brakes. So very few operators ever really want to do cross bleed starts while they're taxiing. But everyone generally tries to do a cross bleed start while you're stationary, while you're stopped somewhere. That way, that extra thrust is not accelerating you really quickly while you taxi. The other thing, of course, you got to consider then with all that extra thrust is what's behind the airplane. Make sure you're not throwing dust, dirt, debris, jet blast in such a way that you're going to create a hazard for other people who are still working on the apron, dealing with other flights and whatnot. So a lot of airports are very restrictive about where they allow you to do cross bleed starts, just because of the sustained increased power on that engine. So it just takes time. And especially if you're behind schedule or whatever, you've got a very tight schedule to keep. Easily, an in-op APU costs you at least 5 minutes of extra time just to get the engine started, push back, get the other engine started in a cross-bleed configuration without time where normally you'd be taxiing already. Normally you've been the pushback, you've got both engines started, you taxi. In the case of the cross-bleed start, you got to sit there for about an extra 2 to 3 minutes after the pushback to get the airplane, the second engine started safely while you're stopped somewhere. So it just adds time more than anything. It's one of those ones where it's not impossible to deal with. It's not at all impossible to deal with, but it's one of those ones where you just look at it and you look at your flight plan and you say, oh, APU and It's going to be a long day. And I remember one time. I remember one time we had. I was in Baltimore, and I believe it was a VIP movement, but everybody was basically stopped for about 10 or 15 minutes from departing Baltimore. And I think it was because of VIP movement. So there was a couple Southwest airplanes out there that were holding short of the runway. One of them, they shut down their engines because they were told it was going to be 15 minutes or so they shut down the engines to save fuel. And so the tower told them to start them back up again. And then the one Southwest airplane, about 30 seconds later or something, came on and said, yeah, we're not going to be able to go anywhere. We just lost the APU. Which, if you think about it, so you're not at a gate, you're parked somewhere remote on the airfield. So they were on the taxiway somewhere off near the runway, and they had shut down. They'd left their APU running because they were going to use the APU to restart the engines, and then the APU failed, and that just created a huge headache right there. That APU failure right in the middle of the taxiway with both engines shut down. Oh my God, I can only imagine those poor guys and what that did to their day from that point onwards, because that easily triggered an hour delay right there, if not more. Sitting there trying to start the APU a couple times, probably didn't work. Call maintenance. Maintenance has probably got to come and deal with it. But they're out in the middle of the airport and they have no way to get back. They're probably going to have to call a tug to come and pull them back to a gate, and that always takes a long time to deal with. Even on the apron, it's not so bad, but trying to get a tug that has a radio in it to talk to the ground controllers and everything else, that always starts to take a long time. Because a lot of the tugs don't actually have radios. Most of them just work on the ramp, so they'll have like a headset for communication with the flight crew, but they won't usually have their own radio because they'll only be pushing on the apron where the flight crew is talking to ATC for them. So in order to drive out there, they're going to have to get a tug with a radio and a licensed operator and all. I can imagine what that was like, but they're on the phone with maintenance. And I mean, the thing is here, they're also, the second that APU failed, they no longer have an electrical generator. They're now operating on battery power too, so they've got to be very careful not to use a lot of battery power. They got to try and radio the company for help and all this other stuff, and they've only got a limited amount of battery power left in the airplane. So they're gonna have to probably eventually shut off the airplane just to save whatever battery power they have left, so they don't completely kill the batteries. What a royal pain. I can only imagine those poor guys and what a day they were having at that point when the APU failed while they were shut down somewhere out in the airfield, because then they probably had to get maintenance to come, because maintenance will have to go and you can't leave with a defective piece of equipment. So the second something breaks before takeoff, you have to get clearance from maintenance to depart. You probably have to fill out all the MEL paperwork, depending on the nature of the failure. Maintenance might have to come and check some things, perhaps pull some circuit breakers on the APU so nobody can start it by accident, things like that. So there's all sorts of stuff that happens then. I felt for those guys that day. I really did, because that's just, the second you heard it, as a pilot, you know exactly what kind of a day they were about to have, and it was just going to be one of those days where they'd be lucky if they got anywhere. And even when it happens back at the gate, I mean, at least then you can offload people, you have access to maintenance and facilities and whatnot. But having it happen out in the middle of the airfield, what a pain. What an unpleasant day that was going to be. Alright, so we're getting not too bad here. Let's do some things here. So we got the progress page up here. It shows that we're not going to get to Victoria until about 1935 Zulu. Wow, where does the time go? Yep, no. 4 hours from now. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, I don't think we can probably do too much, but first of all, let's do this. Let's load the winds, because we didn't load the winds yet. We've got an average wind, but let's go ahead and send that ACARS request to get the winds, see what that does to our time en route here. Show me something, show me stations, show me something I can see on this route here. It's very boring now. Alright, any second now it's going to come back with some winds. Let's see how that impacts our time en route today. There's the FMC message. Cruise wind ready. Load. Alright. So that took us back. That's at 1936. That didn't make much of a difference there. 11 tons. That didn't make much of a difference there. Alright, so let's go ahead and have a look at the cost index then and see what we can do here, because we are showing 11 tons. We only need about 4, I think, for our alternates. So we got about 5 tons extra here right now. So if I double the cost index here, 1936. So for an extra ton of fuel, we get there about 4 minutes earlier. And if I do... This is going to make very minimal difference, I think. That made almost no difference. Yeah, it made almost no difference, so, I mean, as it is, we're pretty much flying the red line. You can't go much faster than that. The other thing actually I have to do as well is just make sure we load up the descent forecast. Come on. There we go. And it's a long way out, but we can also start to think about what kind of an approach we're going to do in Victoria and program that in. So let me just dial up some weather here. Let's see here. Winds are out of the northwest, 310. So probably favoring 27. And I can also pull up my Sim Toolkit Pro. This is one of those things I like about Sim Toolkit Pro. See why it's just the built-in useful tools here. TAF. So temporarily 12 to 17, and then becoming between 15 and 17, 120 at 8. So it's supposed to swing around. It's 310. It's supposed to swing around by the time we get there and actually be out of the east, which is always interesting because that's the approach over the high terrain. So, yeah, I think we'll actually plan on that. Let's plan on the arrival on 09. There we go. Let's plan on arriving on 09 because that's what the task seems to suggest. That won't make too much of a difference to the time. That more just affects the descent profile to make sure we try to pick the top of descent point that gives us complete idle thrust descent. Alright, so let's do that. Let's plan on arriving on runway 09. And that's all we're going to put in there. So we don't have a transition from Victoria. If we don't have ATC, we're just going to have to self-vector. Let's see here. If we do plan, and then yeah, there you go. You can see it right now. So let's just zoom in a little bit so you can see what we're doing here. All right, so let's step Orcus. There's the border crossing. So there's the Victoria VOR, and then what we'll actually probably do is vector ourselves onto a right-hand downwind. There's the airport. Like, we're going to fly right over the airport to get to the Victoria VOR, but in reality what we'll probably do is self-vector ourselves around the south side. So what are we going to have? So I'm just trying to decide. So 7,600 is way too high. Let's plan to be... about 5,000 over the Victoria VOR will set us up nicely on a downwind. Give us some time to decelerate. Alright, so that's good. Let's go back to map mode. That plan kind of gave us some ideas at least of what we're doing. There we go. And are we level yet? Not quite yet. Getting there, getting there. We are almost level. And then I don't have a whole lot of stuff, because really, again, not a whole lot of stuff kind of happened in the last little while in the flight simulation world, but I mean, we'll find some stuff to talk about. I have a few things to talk about. Nothing terribly exciting or groundbreaking, though. Every once in a while, something really shocking and groundbreaking will happen that I'd love to talk about, discuss. Today is nothing terribly crazy, but I still find something to talk about here. So we got about 4 minutes here till we level off in our cruise at 36,000, and then away we go. Then we just got hours and hours of dead air because I don't see any ATC online yet. Let's check it out. Just thinking. Give it a second here. Oh, there is some ATC already up in Vancouver. Too bad we're nowhere close to Vancouver yet. Why is it not tracking us here? It's not connected to the sim. It doesn't seem to have a tracking line going on here. Why is this not tracking us here? I'm just gonna... Give me a second, I'm gonna restart it here. See if it'll find itself better once it's restarted, because sometimes it just needs a little helping hand. I don't know why it's not working there, but anyways. I would like it to track us. Come on, you can do it. Give it a couple seconds to think about it here. Now it seems to know that we're in climb. That's good. There we go. 343, yeah. Now it's tracking us. There we go. I don't know why it wasn't tracking us before. Or why it seems to think we jumped from Victoria. Like, really? Honest to goodness. Some days. I don't know why it thinks we were in Victoria. We weren't Victoria. We're going to Victoria, but we weren't there yet. What the heck? Honest to God. My real point was that there is no ATC yet except in Vancouver, and probably in 4 hours, David would be signed off, I would imagine. Unless he's really going to put in a hardcore day today, which is possible. We seem to have good luck with LAX Center, so maybe we'll run into some LAX Center. I don't expect too much service in Mexico, unfortunately. Never seems to be much going on there. But we'll hope. There is an event going on in... thank you. Check. There is an event going on in Seattle Center later this afternoon, but I don't know if anybody's going to be online in Vancouver when we get there, unfortunately. There's the chime, 36,000. She's climbing well today with a light load. Lots of fuel, but otherwise not very many passengers in the back. I think we had 45, I think was what we had, so not really worth bringing a 3.7 down to Victoria for that, but I don't think WestJet's Dash 8s will make it that far. So I guess if you want to serve that market, you gotta serve it in a 3.7. There we go. Come on, you can do it. There it is. She's leveling. She's leveling. She's doing it. She's doing it. Here we go. I mean, this is 4.5 hours, so this is not a hugely long flight. Last weekend was across the pond, and 8 hours of flying some of these guys more, some like 9-10 hour flights. I can't even imagine that myself. I can't imagine myself spending that much time in the airplane. And especially the key thing there, and the funny thing about Cross the Pond, and the one that makes me sort of wonder about it from the pilot's perspective is you have to be there for the whole bloody time too. You really don't get, there is ATC covers the whole way. You really can't be out of the flight deck. You can leave the flight deck for periods of time, 15-20 minutes here and there, but for the most part, for the whole 8-hour flight or whatever you're doing across the pond, you got to be there the whole time. It blows my mind sometimes that people want that, and if you want to do it, by all means, I'll be the controller at the other end, and I'll do a 4-hour shift for you. But to be in the, in the flight deck for more or less 8 straight hours, an ass-numbing voyage across the Atlantic. If you got something else you can do while you're in the flight deck, one thing that is perpetually in need of is my office, so where my flight sim is in perpetual need of being tidied up. So I find that I do when I reach those points during flight where not much is happening, and even if there's ATC online, I'm trying to stay near the flight deck. But I have the speakers on. I can step out of the seat at least and tidy up my office and do some other things, do some other work. But yeah, to watch, to be like involved in like such a major event like that, where you're constantly listening, constantly hoping, wondering if they're going to call you. It doesn't surprise me when at the arrival end, after people have been in the flight deck for 6 hours, that they're not the most attentive on the radio anymore, especially because a lot of it is very straightforward. You follow your flight plan route, you switch frequencies as you move from one sector to the next, but that's about it. You don't usually get a whole lot of other instructions. Instructions mostly happen in the arrival and departure phase. Once you're established on your route, you just keep on trucking. So it blows my mind that people want to sit there that long. Let's see. But I thought it was well done. I think the overall response for the most part was well done. There was a few glitches in the Canadian airspace, but for the most part, overall, I think pretty well done. It seemed like most airplanes got to their destination with very minimal delays, so you know, that's really the goal at the end of the day. And I thought it was great, actually. Someone posted, oh, let me see if I can find it now, because it, I'm going to have to look here. This might take me a while to find, but there was a great little meme that somebody posted that I really, for Cross the Pond, that I really want to see if I can find again here. I don't even know where it was. I lose it. Can't find it now. Of course I can never find it when I'm looking for it. I don't know, I can't find it. But anyways, it was just a little meme, and it was just a comparison of the real world traffic over the Atlantic to VATSIM, and the contrast was just ridiculous. VATSIM had probably about 5 times as many airplanes out over the Atlantic as the real world actually did. Someone took a screenshot of Flight Radar 24 on that day, and then compared it to the VATSIM map, and there was no comparison. There was 5 times as many airplanes crossing the Atlantic in VATSIM as there were in the real world, which just blows me away. And then the fact that probably, although we did have the event extremely well staffed and there was a lot of sectors lit up at the end of the day, there's probably still less people working on VATSIM than there are in the real world controlling that traffic, when there's 5 times the volume of traffic on VATSIM. So more power to the VATSIM controllers that are doing a lot of work with a lot less resources in a lot of cases. I see a traffic target on there. So I'm going the other way. We'll have to see if we can spot them as they pass us by here. How far are they right now? They're about 40 miles out. But yeah, I thought it was a great event. I enjoyed it. I've had some disappointing cross the ponds in the past where I've ended up on positions where not much happens, and somebody's got to man those positions, so I'm not trying to complain, but I do enjoy it when I'm kind of in the thick of it. That's really what I really do enjoy being in the thick of it, so I want to be in the thick of it as much as possible. I want to give everyone else a turn too, absolutely, but if it's possible, I would like to be there in the thick of it as well. And in this case, I would, being on the center position that I was in, there was a lot of traffic to handle. I kind of had the early waves, but it was never overwhelming, that's for sure. I definitely could have done a little bit more, and I don't. Again, but that's me. And like, our sectors are fairly small in Toronto, so there's a lot of room for other. There's a lot of room for additional airplanes. You get into certain other sectors. Where they're covering a lot more airspace, they have a lot more airplanes in there. Obviously, they're a little bit more they're a lot closer to their saturation points than we were. So, definitely from Toronto's perspective, I think we could have handled quite a lot more airplanes. But it's at the end of the day, for cross the pond, it's the en route sectors that are kind of the limit, that are the bottlenecks that we have to base what the event can handle based on what they can handle. I don't see any contrails today, so we might not be able to spot this guy. He's going to pass probably about 5, maybe 10 miles off our right side here, but I do not see him yet. Trying to spot a little tiny airplane in a big blue sky out there. Not always easy. I do not see him, and I feel like I'm not going to spot him here. Of course, that negative attitude means I won't. If I don't think I'm going to see it, I won't see it. It's all about expectancy. I don't think we're going to spot this guy as he goes by. So what else? One thing I did note this week, actually, and I have again I have some mixed feelings about it. I'm curious to see how it does, but Microsoft released, or Asobo, I guess, Microsoft released their first paid DLC for Microsoft Flight Simulator. They released a new airplane called, what's it called? It's a little ultralight. I forget what it's called now. Let me see if I can find it here. But they released this little... what is it called? The Top Rudder 103, that's what it is. Here it is. So they released the Top Rudder 103, which is this little tiny ultralight, little one-person ultralight, as a paid DLC. So it's an add-on. It's if you will, it's an add-on airplane. But it's actually made by Asobo for $10 US, I believe. I think $9.99 US. So the question sort of becomes. The one thing, and I'll say this right now, is that it's good the way Microsoft has certainly not shut down the add-on market whatsoever, and Asobo has not shut that down. They very much are doing their best to kind of get out there, albeit slowly, and create an SDK and support other developers. So why is Asobo getting into the DLC business themselves? You know, they're selling the base sim, and the one thing I'll say is the base sim is not done by any means. So why are they getting into the DLC market? I guess probably money is ultimately the answer, right? Will this be successful, though? Will they make a lot of money off this? Now, the ultralight, it seems like a very fun airplane. You can probably squeeze into some very, very small fields and things like that with this airplane, which is great. But will it be something that people really will want to pay and $10 for? On top of the price you've already paid for the sim. And when you look at what the current aircraft in the sim are like, is this going to be a really decent airplane? Because this is the thing, is that Asobo has already released like 24 airplanes. All the default airplanes in Microsoft Flight Simulator are Asobo's airplanes. So the same team that developed those probably should have, in theory, developed this airplane. So is this airplane going to be that good? Their lighter airplanes have generally been not too bad, but how good of a model is this going to be? How good of a, how realistic is it going to feel? And is it going to be worth $10? And at half that price, I would have probably said, okay, $10 is not a lot for an airplane add-on, but they made the sim, and again, like the default airplanes are not spectacular. They're definitely not spectacular. So. Is this going to break the mold? Is this going to be better than any of the regular default airplanes? Is it going to just sort of be another default airplane? And if so, if it's going to be like another default airplane, then who's going to want to pay $10 for it? I'm curious. I would love to see the marketing, the sales figures on this aircraft, see how many people actually went out there and bought it. It doesn't strike me as something that certainly I was not particularly excited about. If you want to go and do some cruising around in ultralight, the Cubs are the Cub. In there, there's a couple of tail draggers, in fact, in the default aircraft list, and they're quite nice. So I don't know that that's something that I would necessarily want, but I guess there's lots of people, like, you see the scenery and you see the scenery out there, and it'd be good to experience it in a nice little small airplane where you can get really close to it. You can do some tight turns and go down some small valleys and things like that. But again, I just really wonder, would it be enough to really be worth $10 more? If you've already paid Asobo $60, $100, $140, like however much you paid for whatever version of the sim you've got, I wonder if that's going to be enough. That's all. What a tiny little airplane. But yeah, it sets an interesting precedent as well, because I don't think in the past, I'm trying to think now, certainly in the P3D world, Lockheed Martin focused only on their sim and never really focused on releasing anything separate from the sim. You paid for the sim, you got whatever they worked on, was included in it. I wonder about, I just wonder, because then you've got other airplanes that are kind of coming to the sim, like the ATR-42 next year coming to the sim and officially being, an Asobo airplane being developed in conjunction with Asobo. Is that going to be a payware airplane? Is it going to be, and I imagine it's going to be, is it going to be a higher quality? If Microsoft and Asobo are supporting it, how much money are they taking from it? How much are they padding their pocketbooks with that airplane? So it sort of opens an interesting door. We've sort of reached this point where I feel like the platform developer really is just that, just the platform developer. They're not an add-on developer. They don't make the airplanes, and even Asobo has said this. Asobo's developers have said this. Like, we really are here to create the platform that then other developers are going to build upon. We're going to build the world, and then other developers are going to come in and put their skills to work filling that world. Building better aircraft, building better airport scenery and landmark scenery and all that stuff. And all sorts of other stuff. To let the developers do what they do well, what they have decades of experience in some cases doing. Let them do those things. So, yeah, I find it interesting that Asobo sort of is getting into that DLC market and trying to get into the add-on aircraft market, and I don't know if that's going to work for them. I don't know that I want it. Not that I don't want them to make money, but I want them to focus on the sim itself and really finish the sim properly. Like, it's still sort of in a half-finished state in a lot of cases. A lot of stuff still does not work properly. I really want them to put their effort into updating the sim and improving the sim, and not just scenery updates and like, oh, we're going to add Norway and we're going to add Great Britain, we're going to add Japan. Like, and not that I don't want those places per se, but I really want them to focus on the nuts and bolts of the simulator itself. That's what I want them to focus on. I really do. And any time that they're spending on working on add-on packs like this, I feel is taken away from fixing those problems with the SDK, fixing those problems with all sorts of problems. The default airplanes, like, I still like to fly a lot of the default airplanes. The TPM's a fun airplane, but most of these airplanes, the simple things don't work. Like, the transponder does not connect properly to the external toolkit. So when you turn on the transponder in your airplane, it doesn't go on in VATSIM. It doesn't go on in vPilot properly. Simple things like that need to be fixed. Yeah. Some of the scenery and terrain procedural generation glitches. I was in La Crosse, Wisconsin, LSE, and just to the west of there's like this 500-foot tall mountain peak that doesn't exist in the real world. It's just this one little point of jagged terrain, data error. But it's really obvious when you're flying in that area, and there's a bunch of them still around the world. These are the things they need to be working on. The programmers need to focus on, not building new DLC airplanes. Because it really kind of harkens back to a little bit to me of the whole Dovetail experience. And if there's a company that loves the word DLC, it's Dovetail Games. Oh my god. And I think that's why nobody wanted anything to do with their flight simulator. Because they just milk and milk and milk, and nothing's included, and everything is an add-on pack. And they put out 1,000 add-on packs a year. I mean, you look at Train Simulator. Train Simulator is one of those perfect examples of, like, oh my god, like, there's very little in the base game. The base game is just the base game, but then they produce all the add-ons. Just to take an example. Here we go. If I can just grab this here. Train Simulator 2021. And if you go and you try to browse the add-ons, you will find, is there even a whole list here? I'm just trying to find it. I thought there was a list. Oh, here we are. Yeah. I just don't have it wide enough here. 1 second. Do that. Filter to all. 706 paid add-ons for Train Simulator 2021 for the current version, the modern version that's maybe been out for a year or so. 706 add-ons published by Dovetail Games. Like, that just blows me away. And that really does speak to their model, which is we sell the sim, but we make our money selling add-ons at $20, $25, $45, per DLC. Like, just blows me away. And if you were to do this, let's see here, if I can go browse all 627. If I was, yeah, somebody did this. They added it all to their cart. They literally added it all to their cart, and it comes out to like $4,000 worth of add-ons or something. And that's obviously not everyone's going to get everything, but yeah, that's the dovetail model right there. Is sell a base game, but then sell the add-ons for almost as much as the base game, and sell hundreds and hundreds, produce hundreds and hundreds of them, and hope that people will buy them. And I'm sure some people do. And it's just, I don't want Asobo Microsoft to go down that road. I mean, and it's funny because like Microsoft, in Flight Simulator, there's tons and tons of add-ons as well. But I don't know. It's not the developers. The developer's not intentionally kind of producing a game that has very minimal content and trying to sell you the add-ons. The add-ons are third-party developers. I feel like it's a different dynamic when it's third-party developers because it's not the original developer trying to make all this money off the add-on market, whereas Dovetail, that's all they do. They just sell their own add-ons, and they make huge amounts of money, well, or they try to anyways, off of selling their own add-ons. And that's why I think nobody wanted anything to do with Dovetail when they made their flight simulator, because they saw that kind of potential coming, and they said, oh, these guys are just gougers. They're going to take so much money from it. So anyways, I hope that Microsoft and Asobo are not going down that road. But anyways, I thought it was interesting that came out this week. If anybody's tried it, please let me know what you think of it. I probably won't. It's not my wheelhouse. Again, the ultralight's not really my wheelhouse. I really should do a little bit more slow flying, but I feel like I need to make it somewhere when I'm flying. It's the airline pilot nature in me. I need to make it somewhere. I'm not just there to enjoy the view. I'm there to get there, take people to their destination. Anyways, what else was there this week? Carenado also released a new airplane, and there's another developer that I could rant on about. Because again, there's a developer that puts out a lot of stuff, and it's really, the trouble is that they don't have any follow through, and this is what blows me away and it bugs me about them as a developer, is they have no follow through whatsoever. They take some time to create a nice model. They create usually, the one thing I'll say about their airplanes is they usually look very nice. From the outside they look really good, even the inside will usually look good. But that'll usually be the end of the nice about those airplanes. From my experience with Carenado airplanes, there's always bugs in them. Systems are very crude at best, and even the most basic things like tuning in comm frequencies, there's often light switches. There's often bugs in them. Switches are backwards, or they're not connected properly to whatever they're supposed to control. They're mislabeled. All sorts of bugs and glitches like that. Things that a short beta testing window would always discover, assuming you listen to your beta testers. But a week-long beta testing period would probably discover most of these glitches. But just the fact that these airplanes always get released with a bunch of these glitches in there tells me that they have absolutely zero quality control program in place there. And even when these glitches are discovered and people ask about them and they say, yep, that's a problem, there's never a fix release for any of them. Ever. I don't think I've ever seen a patch for a Carenado airplane, ever. And their planes are always full of bugs. And I'm not saying that I don't want to see the never-ending development cycle where there's constantly a patch, like every 2 weeks released or whatever. There's always a new update to download. But at the very least, when you release something and it's buggy, you should fix the bugs. You don't have to add new functionality, but just fix the bugs that are obvious in there that should be working. Light switches that are incorrect, either they're backwards or they just don't work. Things like that. Things that should have worked right from the get-go. But and again, like I said, like a small beta testing window would have probably revealed these things, but it really bugs me. I'm not a big fan of Carenado airplanes, and I like them because they look good on the outside, and I bought a few of them over the years, and they look really good on the outside. And the flight deck usually looks good, but that's usually where the good ends. The functionality is usually at best halfway, and they can be very frustrating to fly. And it's a shame because also a lot of the stuff that Carenado produces, they're very they're unique airplanes anyways in the sim. They're the only ones that make a lot of these airplanes on these platforms. So Pilatus PC-12, for example, I think they're the only ones that ever made a Pilatus PC-12 for the FSX P3D platform. And there's a popular airplane. That's a very popular GA airplane. Nobody's else has gone out there and made it. Carenado made the only copy, so I have a copy of it, and it's okay, but it's not great. It really is not great. It sort of works, but yeah, it has bugs, and I'm not expecting them to ever be fixed. But yeah, that's one thing. Like, there's a developer that unfortunately they put a lot of stuff out there, but then they don't follow through and they don't support what they put out there. They just move along to their next project as quickly as possible and charge another $40 for the next project. So I think for what they are, their products are overpriced. They look really good, but without backup support, without because they're charging as much as some. They're getting up to a pretty good priced add-on airplane, and they're not particularly good quality. They don't have the follow-through that a lot of the better developers have. They don't have the quality control that a lot of better developers have. A lot of better developers will gladly delay their releases for a couple of weeks, a month or two, if they find bugs in them, and they'll fix the bugs before they even get released, and then when things are released, they will still patch them. But Carenado has no interest in that. Churn them out into the marketplace and move on to the next one. If it's broken, too bad. People already spent their money, that's the end of it. And that sort of philosophy that they have as a developer, it bothers me a lot. So I've stopped really supporting them. I won't say I'll never buy another Carenado product, because like I said, they make a unique set of GA airplanes that nobody else often seems to make. And that's the one thing they kind of have a little bit going for them. And that's their market right there, is they're trying to produce a lot of GA airplanes that nobody else makes, so that people will be forced to buy them if they want to fly that airplane. But I will not be supporting them much, if at all. If I end up supporting them, it's very little. Anyway, so that was my rant for the week. Anyways, I didn't have my live stream last week on this pilot's life career just because I had last week. I had crossed the pond, and that took up a lot of my time. So I didn't feel like I wanted another 5-hour stream on top of that. So I kind of I forewent my flying last week, but this week we'll try and get it done. Next week we'll probably be around the same schedule, and we'll have hopefully a double header, like I said, because the next leg after this in a pilot's life is very short. It's Victoria, just over to Vancouver. It's a very short hop. I have another pilot who said that they always try and do it in the minimum amount of time in the jet, and he said I think their record was 9 minutes. I don't plan on doing it in 9 minutes. I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with either of those two airports to feel comfortable in doing the flight that quickly. But it will be a short flight. We'll probably be longer on the ground than in the air for that segment. But that's okay, because then I think what we'll do is we'll combine it with a quick turn in Vancouver and continue on our way to Winnipeg. And after we finish that Winnipeg leg, then there's just down to Phoenix and back to Vancouver to finish off this season of A Pilot's Life, and then we'll move on to our RJ career. So, anyways, any sign of any ATC yet? So if anybody has anything else they want to talk about, please feel free to pipe up. I've got not a whole lot else right now to talk about. Nope, nobody online yet. Vancouver's still there, but that's about it. The west coast of the U.S. is looking pretty barren, although there's a whole ton of airplanes flying in the SoCal area here, going into San Diego and LAX. Whole ton of airplanes in there. What have we got in the center tank there? Just looking 11 tons still, so we got lots of time before that center tank will run dry. Got a couple hours before that center tank runs dry. So I've already run out of things to talk about today, I think. I am looking forward to eventually getting back to work. Unfortunately, that will mean I probably will spend less time online, less time streaming when I do eventually get back to work, and my schedule will probably become more pseudo-random at that point, but so be it. I have used these periods of time at home to try and make the most out of my simming career, out of my flight sim career, but At some point, it would be good to get in the real flight deck again. I've been out of it way too long this year. I have logged a heck of a lot more time as a sim pilot than as a real pilot in the last year, and it's just sad. It's just sad. On two levels. First, on how little time I'm spending at work. On second, on how many hours I'm spending in the sim. It's way too many. But I don't see a whole lot happening here. I really don't, unfortunately. It's been... it's going to be a bit of a quiet, uneventful day. I'm looking forward to the CRJ as well, I think, just for shorter legs. These WestJet legs have been really long. Really long. I was looking at my... I was backing up my folder that has all of my videos and my YouTube videos in there, and the length of all these streams combined is crazy, and the amount of space that they take up as a result, crazy. I'm looking forward to doing some shorter legs. I miss that with the Dash 8. You get in, do a leg. It's quick. It's done. You're in the flight deck for the whole time. You're not stepping away for periods of time because it's a 5 or 6 hour flight. I'm looking forward to that again. I'm looking forward to shorter legs. I almost want to take a job with a Dash 8 operator for a little while just to just to have some fun with the Dash 8 again. You know, it's not all about the airplane. When you get into the pilot career, it's not all about the airplane. The airplane needs to be a decent airplane that you fly, but it's more about what you do with the airplane. What are the leg lengths? And it's funny because, like, as a sim pilot, I kind of want the opposite of what I would want as a real pilot. In a real pilot, I like the longer legs. It's a little bit more relaxing. A little bit less time pressure of, like, okay, you've just taken off, gear up, flaps up, okay, let's plan the arrival now. It had no time to relax in the middle. Whereas in the sim, that's the interesting part, though. The takeoffs, the landings are the interesting part. Those are the parts you really want to see a bit more of, so I kind of feel like I want to see a bit more of those. So I feel like I really want to go back to doing shorter legs. I feel like I've done... Oops, sorry about that. Wrong window. I feel like I really want to do shorter legs in the airplanes, and not like super short, but I want maybe like a 1 to 2 hour leg length is nice. Like a 5 hour leg length is getting pretty excessive. So I feel like WestJet may not be the best operator for that either. Certainly with the West Coast base, with the Vancouver base. I think Toronto's got a few more shorter flights because there's a lot of major centers within a shorter distance of Toronto when you consider all the major centers in the northeast US, but with WestJet, the West Coast, you know, it's a long way to the next airport. So, anyways. And it's funny when I look out at this P3D scenery now and I compare it to the Microsoft Flight Simulator scenery, it just doesn't even begin to compare anymore. I don't know who originally came up with that idea of using that satellite imagery to create the world that you fly through in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I don't know who originally kind of came up with that idea, if that was something Microsoft had sort of in the back of their heads when they came to Asobo or not, but kudos to whoever decided on that, because that is just phenomenal. Did you find it, Claire? Yeah, I don't know who originally came up with that idea, but that idea is just, what a difference. It's amazing to look down there in Microsoft Flight Simulator and see all the roads and farm fields and every building and house and everything. It's crazy. I am looking forward to moving into that sim more full time. When this airplane, when PMDG's NGX3 comes out in that sim, that's going to be a revolution. And I think if Aerosoft made money, PMDG is going to make money. The only thing is that PMDG's already made probably half their money off that airplane already, because everyone bought the NGXU with to get the $100 discount on the new airplane. I think, well, not everybody, but a lot of people did. So they may not make as much money as Aerosoft did off of the CRJ, just because the money's already been made. They've already gotten the revenue. Now they've got to actually produce the product. People didn't buy the, well, a lot of people didn't buy the NGXU for the NGXU. They bought it for the $100 discount. I bought it for both. I made sure to buy it during the discount period because I didn't have the PMDG 737 on the P3D platform. And again, this is something that bothers me a little bit. I bought the PMDG 737 for the FSX platform, and then to go and spend the full money on the P3D version as well, which is basically the same airplane, just in P3D versus FSX, 64-bit version versus 32-bit. I couldn't spend that much money again for what was essentially the same piece of software, with some upgrades. But with the amount of upgrades that they did, I don't think it was worth full price. I think there should have been a discount from the FSX to P3D leap. Yeah, so I never did get the NGX2 for the P3D platform, not until the NGXU came out, and I was like, well, this is a different enough airplane now, I can justify the cost. But yeah, the original one, I just couldn't justify that cost. So I don't think everyone's in that boat. I think a lot of people already had that airplane, so whether or not they purchased the NGXU was probably a different story. But anyways, I think that PMDG made quite a bit of money off that pre-sale gimmick. And one thing I have noticed about PMDG is they have started to do sales. I don't know if anybody's noticed this now, but for the longest time, for up until probably about 2018, I don't think PMDG ever had a sale. Their products were priced as it is, and take it or leave it. You buy it or you don't, but we will never have a sale. For the longest time, they never had a sale. And then the last couple of years, and it started with their, what was it, their 22-year anniversary, I think, 23-year anniversary. They had, I think that was one of their first ever sales, and I think it was 22 years, and then they discounted everything 22% for like 2 weeks or something like that. And I think that was one of their first ever promotions, and they must have had some success with it, because I've noticed that they started having sales now, and not huge and not all the time, but like every once in a while they'll have like 20% or 25% off all their long haulers or something like that. They'll have a sale periodically now. And I think they found that people are participating in the sales, and they are generating some revenue. And I think a lot of the developers have discovered that, is that especially the ones that have the regular sales, people will buy a lot more products at the sale price when they think they're getting a good deal. And it's a hard thing to price out software, and I've said this before in my streams, but it's a hard thing to price out software, because how do you price out something that the development cost is pretty much fixed? This is not like producing an automobile or a paintbrush or whatever, where there's a set kind of fixed cost per unit item. There is no fixed cost per unit item when you're making software. Regardless of whether 5 people buy it or 500 people buy it, the cost of developing the piece of software is usually going to be roughly the same. There's going to be very little variance based on how many people buy a copy of the software. It costs you it's basically free to copy software. I mean, there is a bandwidth cost for people to download it, but that's so negligible, pennies perhaps, that it's not even really measurable. So how do you price software? And so, and a lot of developers have struggled with that, of how do they price software. Some people price it right at the high end, some people price it at the low end, and the low end, they sell more copies. Do they make more money because they sell more copies? One thing I'll say is I am always looking for a deal. I'm always looking for the sales, and when I see things come on sale, I'm probably more likely to pull the trigger than if it had never come on sale and had been that price to begin with. I think if I feel like I'm getting a deal, if you say your scenery is worth $25, but then you discount it 30 or 40%, so it's now $16, I'll probably pull the trigger on that more than if it had been $16 to begin with. There's sort of a magic threshold for me. I don't know if other people have this, but there's a magic threshold for me of about $10. If something costs less than $10, I'll barely think twice about buying it. Once you get over the $10 mark, okay, now it's not that $10 is a lot of money, but if I just spent $10 here and $10 there and $10 there and $10 there, it adds up really quickly. So $10 kind of for me is a little bit of a mental threshold. If it's less than $10, I probably won't think twice about buying it. If I feel like it's something that I'll use, I'll buy it. Once you cross a $10 threshold, okay, now it's like, am I going to get some use out of it? Can I get a deal on it? And the more likely I am to feel like I got a deal, the more likely I am to pull the trigger. So I think a lot of these places that have the repetitive deals, the repetitive discounts, I think certainly for me it works. Mentally it works on me. I don't know if other people feel the same way, but I feel like I get more bang for my buck if I get a discount. So I think PMDG has learned that. I think they've learned that putting their products on sale periodically, it doesn't have to be often. It doesn't have to be often by any means. You can put your products on sale once a year, but just knowing that there is a sale, that there is a possibility of sale price, people will come in there, and when the sale does come around, you'll probably make a bunch of revenue off people who might not have paid for your product to begin with. Who are the perpetual sellers? JustSim, I think, comes to mind. JustSim's the one that comes to mind as the always on sale scenery. It seems like once a month they have a sale for like 20-30% off their sceneries. And I have picked up quite a few JustSim sceneries along the way for various airports that I've liked. And I've always waited for those sales because I know they're coming. So I think they pretty much have priced their scenery to be on sale. There's a few other developers, though. Most of the other big name developers usually do have a periodic sale. FS Dream Team will have a couple of sales a year. Flightbeam will have a sale a couple times a year. Jersey sales a couple times a year, 20-30% off, and it's not a huge discount, but it's enough that I feel like I'm getting a deal. I feel like I'm getting a little bit of a better deal, and I can usually wait for those sales too if they happen a couple times a year. And then there's the developers that never have a sale. Top of mind, Fly Tampa is one that almost never has a sale. PMDG was up there on that list too until recently. Fly Tampa almost never has a sale. You will see periodically certain products will come on sale on SimMarket, but they never have like a universal sale. They never have a sale on their own website. And Fly Tampa is a great developer. I love Fly Tampa. I really am happy to support them. I just wish they would once in a while have a sale on their website. I think they'll push a lot of product if they do. They do a really good job, and their products are worth the money. But I think you'll find that a lot of people will sort of, again, it helps people who are sort of 60% of the way to buying a product. It helps them pull the trigger, having that sale price. Oh, it's 20% off. I will go for that sale price. Anyways. I have been starting to pad out my collection of scenery in Microsoft Flight Simulator now. Slowly, I'm watching for sales. Now that I have the CRJ, it's a good airplane to fly around in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I've been watching for sales. I'm slowly building up a little bit of a collection. I have not spent any money in P3D in a while. And I have a lot of airports now, especially after the stay-at-home sales the market had last year. And they had another one this year. I wonder if they're going to make it an annual event now, because it seemed like that was a good way to get people really interested in different sceneries. Maybe fly to parts of the world they may not fly to otherwise, he says as he flies through North America nonstop. See, now that's the fun thing. That's the funny thing too. Is like you can use Microsoft Flight Simulator for all sorts of different things. You can use any Flight Simulator for all sorts of different things. You can use it to explore your own corner of the world, or you can use it to explore completely foreign and remote corners of the world. I tend to use it more to explore my own corner of the world, because I use it as a little bit of practice, if you will, for the real world, and a little bit of training sometimes as well. So I like to feel more comfortable with knowing the areas, knowing the ATC procedures and everything. Going to foreign countries is a little bit more. Just things are done a little differently. I have enjoyed the couple times I've gone to Europe, and I wonder if I shouldn't make more effort into getting into some of these places. But the other thing too, again, especially in the P3D world, is I feel like I have to have the scenery for it to be worth streaming. I can't stream default scenery. I just can't do it. It's so bad. So I need to have some kind of add-on scenery, whether it be freeware, whether it be a decent freeware or payware, but I gotta have something. So I do have a freeware scenery coming up in Victoria. That definitely looks better than the defaults. But, and this is the problem with sort of branching off into new areas, especially as far as streaming is concerned, is that if there's not any good airports that I already have, you sort of have to have a network of airports to be able to work in that part of the world. So, Microsoft Flight Simulator's got a few of their whatever they call them, their bespoke airports in various parts of the world that might be good launching points. where you can sort of move from there out into other places. So they've got quite a few in Europe. I think I might be able to tackle Europe, but as far as kind of Asia or perhaps Australia would go, their bespoke airports are mostly few and far between. To try and really build up a network of airports that I can fly between would be very challenging, I think. I could always go and do the one-off flights, though, not part of the pilot flight career, but just sort of as a one-off flight in the CRJ. I should go and do some flying around Europe in the CRJ. Just do some one-off flights. That would be fun, I think. Now, I know we had a step climb programmed in here today. Where's the step climb? Just look at my OFP here. Amida. At Amida, we're supposed to go to flight level 380. Did we already pass Amida? I wonder. Let me look through my flight plan here. Yes, we did pass Amida. I think. We already passed Kokan. What are we on? We're on our way to Cetro. Yeah, we passed Amida like 2 waypoints ago. Yeah, there we go. Well, I guess it's time for my step climb to 380. There it goes. Shouldn't take too long with only 40-something people in the back. Once it gets all stabilized, you're probably going to climb at least 1,000 feet per minute. She's definitely not struggling today, that's for sure. Alright, well, I'm running out of steam here of things to talk about, so if anyone has anything they want to talk about, please say something now, or I'm going to probably have to step away for a little bit here. I feel like my throat's running dry here anyway, so I may need to step away and just go refresh my coffee at the very least, but not much is going on here now. It really is another uneventful morning on VATSIM, and I really have got to stop streaming mornings, but these long flights really need to start in the morning. Checked. That's one thing. It's like the morning flights, I have to start in the morning in order to have enough sort of time throughout the day to get them done. So, I mean, we are making some progress here. I can't say we're not making progress. Vancouver Centre's still the only one that's there, though. That's okay. We will get there. He'll be gone long before we get there, I have no doubt, though, because we're not going to be there for 3.5 hours. If he's still there, I will be shocked. I would buy him a beer, but, you know, you can't visit with people anymore in this world. One day soon, we'll be back to having a social life again outside of our own four walls, outside of Zoom, but we're getting there. Alright, there we are. Level at 380. We're about 6 an hour, so in about 90 minutes is when that tank will run dry. So if you guys have nothing else to talk about, no questions for me, then I think I'm going to step away for a little bit here. And, yeah, go refill my cup of coffee, come back in time for that, time to switch off that tank anyways, if we don't get any ATC before that, so... Let's see here, an hour and a half would put us at about 17:30. So we'll plan to come back around 17:30. Because I don't see any ATC online, unfortunately. I will always be listening. I will be monitoring my stream even if I'm not actually talking for a little period of time here. But yeah, I think we're going to step away for a little bit here. And if any of you guys didn't catch it, over on my YouTube channel, I did live stream Across the Pond. I know a lot of people have watched it and enjoyed watching it. It wasn't Arrival or anything, or Ground or Tower, but it was Center. It was on route control. It was kind of fun though. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was quite a lot of fun. It started out really slow because I logged on right at the start of the event, so the traffic didn't start to kind of build through our sector for about the first 30 minutes. But after that, it started to get pretty interesting. So if you haven't seen that, go ahead and watch that. And yeah, I think I'm going to step away because just not much happening. I got nothing really left to talk about, unfortunately, right now. So I'm going to go and Go and refill my coffee, step away from the flight deck for a bit. I'll leave my virtual FO in charge. But if you guys have any questions or anything, please pop them in the chat. I will read the chat when I come back. And otherwise, I'm going to step away for a little bit. So thank you as always, guys, for watching. I always do appreciate it. I hope you're enjoying the stream. I hope you're enjoying the commentary along the way. I need a little break, but we will be back in a little while. So stick with me, guys, and we'll be back here in no more than about an hour and a half.
Still returning to Pushback. Of course. We're not even halfway.